to live in Goshen, and during a hunger he fed them, and then they went against him, and they lied. They said they want to bring sacrifices, korbanos, to their God, and they'll go out of Mitzrayim for 3 days. And they asked the Mitzrayim to give them their silver and their gold and nice clothing and jewelry, and not only that, they floated up their donkeys and they emptied out Mitzrayim from all their wealth, and then they ran away and they didn't come back. So Achashverosh is forgetting the fact that they would torture the Yidden for 210 years and didn't even pay us for our labor. You know, there's something called minimum wage. You got to pay someone for working. Paro wasn't paying, so the Jews took money that was rightfully theirs. But anyway, he writes in the letter that when Paro chased them, what happened? There was a Jew amongst them, a prophet named Moshe, the son of Amram, and he took his staff and he said some type of magical saying, and he hit the water and it became dry. I don't know how he did this. Instead of understanding that it was the hand of Hashem, he says it was Moshe doing magic. That's what Achashverosh thought. And the Jews passed through the water, through the Red Sea. And then when Paro ran after them, he and his whole army drowned. See, the Jews don't even appreciate the good that was done from them. That's how Achashverosh distorted the history. Even nowadays, people write history and they sometimes distort it. They don't tell you what really happened. Then he says that the grandfather of Haman also wanted to fight against them because Bilam, who was a great advisor, he was a big Rasha, said that it's very important to fight the Jews. Otherwise, no one else will ever be able to overcome them. So what happened? Moshe sent Yoshua bin Nun against Amalek. And Achashverosh writes in the letter that, he was a ish achzar, a cruel, wicked man, this Yoshua, without even a bit of mercy. That's what he says. If anything, that was Amalek, not Yoshua. I don't know what he did. Maybe some type of magic or sorcery. Moshe was sitting on a rock, and I don't know what happened, and all the Amalekim fell down. Then Achashverosh continues in his letter. He says that the Jews came to the land of Sichon and Og, who were the strongest in the land. Now, I don't know how he got rid of them, but he got rid of them. And he says they also conquered the kings of Midian and the 31 kings that were living in Israel. Yeshua defeated them. And Sisera and Sancheriv, later on, there were other great generals and kings that fell down. And then he writes in the letter, they had a king named David Amelech, King David. And he destroyed all the kingdoms and he didn't let people live. And after him came his son, and Shlomo, Solomon, who built a house for their God. And he says they go into it. I don't know what they do over there, but when they come out, they beat their enemies up. So he says they have a lot of money and they're arrogant. They think they're better than everybody. But eventually, Nebuchadnezzar destroyed their palace, their Beis Hamikdash, and he brought them down in chains. And he put some type of magic against them. This is what he writes. And now they make fun of us and they embarrass us and they won't even get married with us. The Jews don't want to assimilate with us. So you see that Achashverosh wanted the Jews to assimilate, and that's the yitzhar of every generation, that the Goyim want to assimilate the Jews, God forbid. And it turns out, he says there are other bad things they do I don't want to mention now, but we decided to destroy the Jews. And the lottery day fell on the 13th of Adar. So I'm sending you this letter to be prepared to get rid of the Jews on that day. Old and young, mothers and children to get killed on one day. Don't let even one of them live. Signed by Achashverosh with the royal seal. But it's amazing how actually Achashverosh fell for Haman's story. And he really wanted to get rid of the Jews. And that's why Haman was compared to that snake. I think we have to realize that even though Haman's gone, in every generation the Yetzer Hara still exists. That snake also tries to get Yidden to do things against the will of Hashem. So from Purim we have to try to remember to be stronger, to be faithful to Hashem, loyal to Hashem. Don't listen to that snake inside us, that Yetzer Hara, who tries to get us, chas v'shalom, to break the rules of Hashem, to ignore the Torah. Let's be mechazik in Talmud Torah, everyone with big goals, learn more Torah, try to be kaivish Yetzirah, not to act like the goyim and not to look at the goyisha ways, which means watch less, try not to watch television or goyisha videos, and try not to look at goyisha things, whether they're books, they're newspapers, they're magazines, or any of their other things. And if we're mechazik in this, then we get rid of the Yetzirah within us, and that's the real Yetzirah, the snake inside of a person, and then hopefully Hashem will make Mashiach come in our time, and he will shecht the Yetzirah. Chazal say he'll get rid of the Yetzirah. That Mordechai tells Esther, you must go to Achashverosh and persuade him to stop this evil edict, this decree of annihilation that was supposed to destroy a nation from the world, especially such a great nation. Turns out Esther risks her life, goes before Achashverosh, and miraculously he accepts her warmly, even though at first he was angry, and he says, what is your wish? Esther Amalka, what's your wish? What's your request? So he offers very generously, I can give you up to half of my kingdom. Very nice man. So what does she say? I like to make a party, like a tea party, for you and Haman tomorrow. Now right away Achashverosh is wondering, why is Haman invited? If a guy takes his wife out for dinner, it's strange if someone else is invited. So why are you inviting someone else? But she acts like as if she really likes Haman, even though in her heart she despised him. She did this, Chazal say, to be ma'orer kina, to make Achashverosh become jealous of Haman, and this way he won't be his friend anymore, and he won't listen to his plot of destroying Jews. So, turns out, Esther invites Haman to Russia to the party, and at the time of the party, he turns to Esther again, Achashverosh, and he says, again, Ma bakashaseich u'ma she'elaseich. What is your request? What is your will? And I'm willing to give you until half of my kingdom. So she says, my master, my king, Malki Hayakar, your excellency, your majesty, if I find favor before you, and you really want to do my wish, so come again tomorrow with Haman for another party that I'm going to make for you, and then I'm going to tell you what's my wish. Why did I come uninvited to talk to you? Haman left the house so happy. He left the castle of Achashverosh, the palace, feeling so proud, until he saw Mordechai, who would not bow down to him in the palace gate. This made Haman very humbled, and for the arrogant Baal Gaiva that he was, this was very unpleasant and uncomfortable. So he held in his anger and he went to his house. In his house, there were a lot of friends visiting. He had a lot of friends. Chazal say there was 365 people gathered around him. You can imagine how big his house was. And Haman started speaking and boasting about his great wealth, how rich he was. Pretty amazing, because once upon a time, years back, Haman was a barber. Now he went and he was already raised from such a low position of being a barber, giving haircuts, to being the king's, greatest official. And then he started speaking about his honor and how many children he has, so many children, and how the king gave him such a high position. And even Esther the queen invited me with the king to a special banquet that she prepared. And I'm even invited again tomorrow to a party with this Esther the queen. But you know what? All this doesn't make me happy as long as I see Mordechai HaYehudi sitting in the king's gate. What should I do to him? So around Haman were all these advisors and friends, and no one had such a good idea like his wife Zeresh. His wife Zeresh, the Rishanta that she was, said like this: don't try to kill him by fire, because his grandfather Avram Avinu was saved by a fire. So don't try to burn him. And don't try to kill him with a sword, because his grandfather Yitzchak was saved from a knife, from a sword. And don't try to drown him, because Moshe Rabbeinu was saved from being drowned. He could have drowned in the Nile River with the alligators, and he was saved by the water. He didn't drown. And don't try to throw him into a pit with wild animals, because Daniel was saved from wild animals. But I have an idea for you, says Zeresh. Make a very tall gallows, a very high tree, 50 amos. That's about 100 feet tall, to hang Mordechai. No Jew was ever saved from being hanged. This is what she claimed. And she said, tell the king this bright and early in the morning to hang Mordechai. This way you can go to the party with a leiv sameach, with a happy heart. Can you imagine how wicked Haman was? Here he's rich and has a big family and powerful and famous and honored. But one person doesn't honor him and he's angry. So that's the way people are sometimes. They, instead of looking at the good, they look at the bad. He could have said, oh, big deal, one person doesn't want to honor me. He could have ignored him. But instead it bothered him so much, he couldn't even be happy at his party in his honor. Zeresh was worried that Mordechai might want to do some magic to save himself. And she knew that somebody whose feet is not on the ground, he can't do sorcery and magic. So she felt if you hang Mordechai up, he won't be able to do magic to save himself. This is what she figured. She also knew that the power of the Jews is in their throat. How? When they daven, when they learn Torah, when there's the Kol Yaakov, the hands of Esav collapse and fall down. So she decided, why don't you hang him from his throat so he won't be able to daven with his throat? Why don't you hang him from his throat? He won't be able to learn Torah. We find by Yaakov Avinu, he said he was able to kill the enemies in his time. Becharbi ubekashti. He said with his sword and his bow, which Chazal say was his Torah and his Tefillah. Torah and Tefillah help Klal Yisrael, save us from our enemies. So she tried to block him from being able to daven by choking him. And then he wouldn't be able to call out to Hashem for help. Now some say that really Big Son and Zeresh were good friends with Haman. And since they were hanged, Haman wanted to hang Mordechai, who caused that his friends Big Son and Zeresh were hanged. So that's why I wanted to hang him. It turns out, as soon as Zeresh, that wicked woman, gave this idea, this plan to hang Mordechai, so Haman immediately had to look for a big pole, this is taller than a telephone pole, to hang Mordechai. And they started looking for a beam that's 100 feet, 50 amma. It wasn't easy. But one of Haman's sons, whose name was Parshandasa, he was once a general in the army in a place called Kardonia or Kurdistan, and he was able to bring a beam for his father all the way from Turkey, from Mount Ararat, which is where the Teva of Noach rests today. Today it's buried in snow and ice, but over there the Teva was very big. He was able to get a very big pole out of Noach's Teva, and he wanted to hang Mordechai on that pole. Some say he got the beam from the Kodesh Kodashim, from the base of Mikdash that was destroyed, that one of the beams of the Kodesh Kodashim was 50 amma. Can you imagine? He wanted to hang Mordechai on a beam of the base of Mikdash. And some say that really this beam was part of Haman's house. And he started breaking apart his house that night to get out a beam so he could hang Mordechai on it. It turns out, why did Haman want to hang him up on a beam so high? Because there was a rule in Persia that if a man was sentenced to death and he's being hung on a rope, if the rope snaps, he's free. There was a law like that, a rule. He was pardoned. So Haman wanted to make it so high that this way, even if it falls, even if he falls, if the rope snaps, he would die by the fall. That's how wicked he was. Zeresh told Haman, hang him up in the morning, before he has a chance to say Shema. Why? Because that wicked woman knew that when a man says Shema, with kavanah, it's a special protection. There are 248 words of Shema, and when you say it with kavanah and you think what it means, how you see that